Boeing HQ in Seattle faxed the repair report to the investigative team in Japan. When the airplane had been damaged and the repair crew looked at the airplane, it was clear they were going to have to replace the bulkhead. They elected, I think, to replace just the lower half because of shipping problems with the whole bulkhead. The Boeing engineers designed a repair. They made a drawing and written instructions on how to put the bulkhead back together. The 1978 repair design instructs Boeing engineers to attach the new lower half of the bulkhead to the existing top half. To join them together, they're secured with a splice plate held in place with 3 rows of rivets. As the unusual metal fracture sheared off along the line of rivets, the investigators' suspicion falls on the join between the splice and the bulkhead's 2 halves. The team calculates what would happen if the repair used fewer rivets than required. One of the scenarios we considered during our discussions was, what if the repair to the bulkhead was done improperly? One of the team members did a mathematical calculation. If that were true, and it determined that the bulkhead would fail at about 11,000 cycles. Remarkably, the plane had performed 12,319 takeoff and landing cycles since the repair, very close to the predicted number. It's a breakthrough moment. A faulty bulkhead repair could be behind the world's deadliest single aircraft crash. The investigators now need hard evidence to back up their theory. Japanese police again grant access to the crash site, so the team can examine the wreckage in more detail. So we went right to the area of the pressure bulkhead that had what I considered a curious-looking fracture. We discovered that the repair had not been done as designed. In the process, they had a place where they had to put in the splice plate, and it had been done wrong. The investigators discover the splice plate from the wreckage is an incorrect size. It appears that to make it fit, the engineers deviated from the repair design. The splice plate, in fact, had been cut into 2 pieces. The narrower section was fixed with a single row of rivets. The wider section of the splice was fixed with a double row. That rendered that section of the splice basically to 70% strength of what it would have been otherwise. Because of the faulty repair, just 1 row of rivets takes most of the force during every takeoff and landing pressure cycle. During each cycle, the bulkhead stretches and shrinks like the skin of a balloon. Tiny cracks form and grow around where the rivets punch through the metal. Some 12,000 cycles after the repair, the splice plate shatters. High-pressure air from the cabin bursts through the hole, weakening the bulkhead, causing it to fail explosively. This failure is heard as the first explosion. This high-pressure air from the passenger cabin bursts through the bulkhead. Investigators now want to know the reason for the second explosion. Following the discovery of wreckage in Sagami Bay, they know that JAL 123 lost its tail fin 12 minutes into the flight. Revisiting the flight recorder, they realize this is around the same time that both explosions are heard, leading the team to an astonishing conclusion. As high-pressure air bursts through the failed bulkhead into the tail section, it blows the tail fin clean off. During the design of the 747, we didn't anticipate a vertical fin coming off or a pressure bulkhead blowing out, and just wasn't something that was anticipated to happen. The investigators must now find out how an exploding bulkhead and lost tail fin led to the pilots losing control and the plane crashing. Air traffic control tracked JAL 123 meandering deep into the Kanto mountain range, away from Haneda Airport in Tokyo, and recorded the plane repeatedly losing and then gaining altitude. Through plotting the plane's flight path, the investigators recognized a familiar pattern, a type of aircraft motion called a phugoid. As JAL 123 begins to dive, it accelerates. The increased speed generates lift, and as the plane climbs, it slows, causing it to dip again. The investigators know this phugoid motion is indicative of an aircraft with inoperable control surfaces. These are critical for banking and controlling the plane's altitude. The rudder, attached to the tail fin, controls yaw, the angle at which the plane flies forward through the air. Loss of a rudder alone will not lead to phugoid motion, but major damage to a plane's hydraulic system will. Large modern airliners, all the flight controls are boosted by hydraulic pressure. There's no way the pilot has enough strength to move the flight controls through cables and pulleys like in the old days. So the hydraulic systems power the flight controls. The team realized JAL 123's hydraulics were critically damaged during the bulkhead's explosion. To get the 4 hydraulic systems up into the vertical fin and to the rudders, all 4 have to go up there. And that means they have to run through the pressure bulkhead to start with, and they have to run up into the vertical fin. As the tail fin rips off, it severs critical hydraulic lines. The aircraft is paralyzed. Once they lost the vertical fin and the hydraulic systems, the pilots were only able to minimally control the airplane with engine power. The airplane continued to fly in circles up and down